Nostalgia's been a saving grace for me throughout this pandemic. This is where I should have a self-aware joke about my privilege of having boredom be my biggest problem. But I also lost my job twice and had to restart careers, move several times, and now I've even had to delay this YouTube thing for over a year. So when a normally politically contentious era would throw me into nothing but protest and doom scrolling and losing my shit on a near daily basis, it's been a welcoming appeal to find simple pleasures in retro games. Saccharine honey pots of nostalgia that I can slide into like a hot bath. I've been deep diving into my childhood for anything that can bring a spark. Replaying Pokemon on an old Game Boy, eBay window shopping for water worms, and buying Nesquik in my 20s can only go so far. I decided to dive into a console that I had never had as a child but always wanted. One that tempted me from afar with its lights and sounds. The one that will always be the greatest to me solely for it being my white whale, my city upon a hill, my job right out of college for an English lit major. Alas, poor Yorick, it was never to be. Oh wait, I'm an adult with a full-time job and nothing but time on my hands and enough latent Peter Pan syndrome to justify this video? This is the year I got really into Super Nintendo. If there's one thing I remember most from my childhood, it would be grass. As a child, I was always told to go outside to play. So for hours I would play in the woods, exploring and staring into the grass, finding little biomes of insects and lost treasures. When I was inside, however, there was one and only one thing that captured my attention as much as nature, and that was television. Something about the whirring, tactile static made its embrace feel welcoming, and beyond the limits of only 32 channels, there were video games.
Now you're playing with power, superpower.
I never had any video games growing up, and for many years my parents were adamantly against them being brought into our house. It was a case of the classic 90s argument, they'll fry your brains! But to be honest, I don't think I would have felt any different if I were in my parents' position at the time. Video games were an emerging medium on the market, and even companies that would one day become titans of the industry were still figuring out the very medium they were crafting through trial, error, and innovation. I remember being around the corner at my friend's house when his parents told him that they were going to be taking him out to buy a Super Nintendo for his birthday, which, for historical reference, was several years after the Super Nintendo's release, which made it a bargain console at that point, compared to the cutting edge of the 3D era of consoles. I ran home and immediately begged my parents for a Super Nintendo, and they reiterated the rule of no video.
No video game.
There were kids in my class that had green-screened Game Boys that ate thousands of batteries, and a cousin of mine that had a Nintendo Entertainment System that I never was allowed to touch even after he'd long finished with it. I did not have access to gaming magazines or arcades, and only one kid in my class had a computer with internet access, so there was no way for me to imagine or visualize what this console could be. To me, at that age, the Super Nintendo was a mysterious device powered entirely on dreams. The next day, my friend, let's call him Ness, invited me over to his house to play the system, after a whole day of telling me all about Mario and his world. We ran home from the bus and raced to get to his house. Bolting down the stairs, we skidded onto our knees, burning them on the carpeted floor, tossing our backpacks aside and switching on the console. I am certain that the reason my favorite color is purple to this day has to do with the purple power and reset switches on that gray console. I did not get to play it that day, only watch. When after hours of watching my friend play, he finally passed me the controller and said, I guess you can have a turn. I made a fast track to the stage with Yoshi. I jumped onto that magical green dinosaur. But that was the moment that Ness's mother came down and said, I hope you're not hogging Ness's new toy. It is his birthday after all. Defeated, I put down the controller. I laid awake that night, transfixed on the green dinosaur and the little mustached man. The tangible feeling of running and jumping in a digital world, the colors, the shapes, the sounds, danced around my head all night as I imagined what other worlds there were to be played. I was in love for the first time. I didn't pick up a controller again until I went to Kirby's house, another boy in my class who had a Super Nintendo, and that is when it all broke open. From the simple of Super Mario World to the Street Fighter II Turbo and the of Mega Man X. I was hooked. If you were a kid in my class with a Super Nintendo, we were probably friends. There are too many game titles to name here, which is why I've kept things basic up to this point. Being a child of the era meant that whatever games you played were the ones that you had, and no one, no matter how many birthdays or Christmases, no matter how bad they wanted, no one I knew ever had more than 3 to 5 games. All the other classics I would have to come to appreciate with time and age. Be that Mortal Kombat 2, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Final Fantasy 3, and Chrono Trigger, Donkey Kong Country, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, UN Squadron. They all didn't exist to me in that era. All the best games, all the hidden gems, the overlooked licensed games, were not titles I could appreciate until I repurchased them later in my 20s. There are few video game consoles as legendary as the Super Nintendo. Considered by some the perfection of the 2D era, built upon the legacy of Nintendo's first home console, the NES, which paved the way for a new era of games as commonplace in the home. Meanwhile, a console war with Sega pushed developers to their limits, and technical achievements of the arcade were finally being translated to the home through advances in development, such as parallax scrolling, stretch frames, animation, sprite work, and innovative design. The console also pushed into 3D graphics on a 2D console, using such tricks as the Super FX chip and Mode 7, tilting the frames to appear 3D even before graphics cards could output true polygonal shapes. The console was home to an era of heavy hitters from publishers like the manufacturer's own Nintendo, Capcom, Konami, and more. I gained a greater appreciation for the console as I came of age, and later purchased a Super Nintendo for $20 at a gaming convention, and was finally able to go back and relive all those childhood memories. Then again, when COVID struck and the entire world told us to stay indoors, it became the perfect way to pass time and secure my sanity in those dark days. After regulations loosened, I was able to start to see friends again. The first thing I did was to share my growing love for this console with them. One-on-one fights in Street Fighter 2, dunk contests in NBA Jam, and seeing how long we could survive against the onslaughts in Zombies Ate My Neighbors. It soon became the weekly time that I looked forward to most, just seeing a friend and sharing a game. It was like when I was young and the greatest part of my week was playing with a friend so I could get my hands on video games. I now was using video games to get closer to my friends. While all of this is based heavily on nostalgia, I would disagree to anyone who said that my love for the console purely came from nostalgia. The Super Nintendo is now heralded for its technical achievements, pristine library of games, and is held as one of the greatest of all time. I don't think I need to argue any more of that. It speaks for itself. What makes something the greatest of all time? I don't think it has to do with exactly how great something is or was. Oftentimes, the things we do not have are the things that occupy our minds the most, whether it be that nature path we never ventured down, or a digital world of dinosaurs and turtles. Nostalgia is a thing that can be as sweet and saccharine as it is cold and painful. Yet, it's the combination of the joy of discovery and the pain of the wanting that made it an immutable memory. Today, when I close my eyes, I can still see the grass and hear the breeze, feel the grass blades pressed against my knees as I laid there for hours, imagining the lives of ants and the mysteries of their tunnels and microscopic forests. And I can still play the first several stages of Super Mario World in my head, with all the and I still know the exact block where Yoshi first sprung all those years ago. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you also have game feels, then this is a channel I really hope you'll enjoy. Please subscribe for more videos, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what your greatest console of all time is, or your favorite gaming memory. And be sure to hit the bell so you'll be notified when I do release my next video. I'd like to thank my friends and family for supporting me during the making of this video. This video and this channel have been a dream of mine for years, and so this is a very big step toward me realizing that dream. I'd also like to thank Kylie, Chris, and David for their help in making this video, as well as Gentle Beatz for supplying the music. If you like their music, you can follow them down at their YouTube channel in the link below.